Welcome to the Board Game Network. This is James. I am going to be going through how to play this game called Mare Nostrum Atlas. It's the expansion from Mare Nostrum Empires. Mare Nostrum Empire plays 3 to 5 players. This will play 2 to 6, and then it also has 3 other expansions in it. So I'm going to start off with the 2-player expansion, and it is the Rome versus the Carthage Punic Wars expansion. So you've got, and I've got this laid out only with the differences. I'm assuming that you know how to play Mare Nostrum Empires already, because I'm not going to go over those rules. I'm only going to go over the differences with Atlas. Okay, so you've got one player that's going to play Rome, the red player, one player that's going to play Carthage, the black player, and you also have the Barbarians. You have a lot of pieces here from the Atlas set, and you're going to look for the light brown ones. Those are the Barbarians. And here's the way the Barbarians get set up. You have 4 of your legions in Achaia and a fortress in Achaia. You've got 2 legions in Macedonia and a fortress in Macedonia. You've got 2 legions in Thracia and a fortress there. And then you've got a trireme here, a trireme here, a trireme here. One in Mare Ionium, Mare Aegeum, and one up here in the Pontus. Okay, and then I've covered up the rest of this. You're setting this up just as if there's 3 players. And so the Barbarians is the 3rd player. And so here's the difference on your trade phase 2. When you do trading, you are going to trade overseas, and you're going to flip up 3 legendary commodities, and they're going to be face up, and those are kind of your 3rd player trading. You also have, you've got Carthage as your leader in trade and the cultural leader, and you have Rome as the military leader starting off. And then in phase 2, with your trading resources, you flipped up 3 legendary commodities. And so when you're trading, you can trade for one of the legendary commodities. And if you do that, if you take this, then your opponent discards one of his. So it's essentially, it's like the foreign then traded with them. So the one got discarded, then that would be the other player's turn to do some kind of trade. And you are not limited on the 2-player trading back and forth twice that you are limited in Empires, where you can trade with the same person twice in this game. And then at the end of the phase, if all 3 of these are not taken, you just leave them out and you flip up, so you always have 3 legendary commodities for the next round. So that's the only difference in trade. And then you skip up to phase 4, the move and battle. When you move and battle, you can use a coin or a gold to move a legion or a trireme. Triremes cannot engage in battle, so you can't fight them and they can't fight you. And they can only be used to move their own legions. But you can pay gold or coins to move legions a space, or move a trireme a space. And then they can engage in battle with you, or by themselves they move into a space with an opponent, and then they will engage in battle. If they win battle, then they can only pillage. So the active player is going to pillage, and the active player would get the resource from whatever they pillaged. If you're using the Barbarian legions to fight with you, they can be in the same space with you and battle. If those barbarians are there at the end of the round and you're still in that space, then they will fight you on the opponent's turn, because they're going to now turn around and battle you. Victory conditions are essentially the same, except for being in control of all 3 leadership tracks. You have to do that for 2 rounds instead of 1 round. Instead of at the end of the 5th round you have all 3, then you have to hold it for the next round also. The other is having being in control of 4 cities or legendary cities at the end of the phase 4, which is move and battle. Instead of you just holding that until the next round, you have to hold it for 2 rounds, and it doesn't have to be the same 4 cities necessarily. You just have to hold 4 cities, and then those could be different in the following round. But if you hold 4 cities for 2 rounds consecutively, then you win the game. So that's how you play the 2-player Rome versus Carthage Punic Wars expansion. Now for the 6-player expansion for Mare Nostrum Atlas, we are adding Atlantis, which is a separate board, and it's just set to the left of the normal board. And so we have Atlas as our hero. Here's the starting commodities here. You got 2 coins, 2 metal, 2 ceramic, a sheep, a grain, and oil. And then you lay it out just like on your mat here. You have 1 legion and 1 fortress starting, so you don't start very strong. Then here are your starting setup on the leadership track. 6 on the trade, and then 2 on both of the others. And you have 5 new heroes. And so you do everything like the normal game. You've got all of the normal heroes. You just have 5 more heroes. And so let me tell you what these do. First off, Atlas. He lets you build triremes for 2 commodities instead of 3. Chiron here has a centaur figure. And when you get Chiron, you immediately build and place the centaur unit for free. And when the centaur goes into battle, it immediately destroys 1 opponent legion before the battle even happens. And if you lose the centaur, you can repurchase him for 6 resources. He goes in, he can battle, pillage, occupy, and do things just like normal legions, except for he does not count for military leadership, and he does not benefit from any legion bonuses. Then you got Medea, and she can freeze triremes. They get petrified. Once per round you take this token, you set it in there. It has to be a place where you and an opponent has triremes in the same sea, and then all of the opponent triremes cannot move, transport, or battle for the rest of the round. And then you cannot choose the same sea twice in a row. Medea gives you a trade and a military bonus, a leader bonus. Then you got Pegasus, and Pegasus lets you fly your legions up to 2 province and or sea zones. So you can move a single group up to 2 spaces, and you can actually fly over opponents, over seas or land. Then you got Medusa, and Medusa essentially does the same thing as Medea, except for you're petrifying legions on land, and they cannot battle, move, or occupy for the rest of the round. That gets a 1 military bonus. Then you got Orpheus. At the conclusion of one of your battles, you can resurrect one of your destroyed units and place him on the Orpheus tile, and then he can be built for free during the building phase of the next round. So that's your 6th player, and they're playing with the light green pieces. Now I'm going to talk about the 3 other expansions centered around the legendary cities. We've got Troy, we've got Jerusalem, and we've got Syracuse. And Troy is war-based, Jerusalem is culture-based, and Syracuse is commerce-based, so 1 around each track, each leader track that's in the game. And you just keep the same rules as the normal Mare Nostrum game, except for you've got 6 new heroes or wonders. The Jerusalem one has a wonder in it, but all the other ones have 6 heroes. And then you've got a bonus card deck, and you've got 3 objectives each expansion. So the way to pick out which expansion goes with which is the Syracuse one is yellowish. It's yellow on the back. It's all the art is yellow, and it's got a yellow back to the bonus deck. The Jerusalem one is green, and the Troy one is brown. So the basics to the way all of these work is you are going to have these objectives out, and if you complete an objective, these bonus cards are shuffled and upside down. You can draw 1 to 5 cards from the bonus deck when you complete an objective. The objective goes face down, and these bonus cards do something, but you're going to draw 1 to 5, you're going to take 1 of them, and whatever's left you have to give to somebody else, and he can take 1, and then he gives 1 to somebody else until everybody has taken 1. Or if you don't draw very many, then maybe everybody doesn't get 1. If there's leftover ones, they get discarded. And so these bonus cards are one-time use cards, and there are ones that don't do anything, that are just, they're called fortune tellers. They don't do anything. So if you only draw 1 expecting to not give any to anybody else, you might get a fortune teller and it doesn't do you any good. So for the Troy objectives, here's one objective, is to control 5 territories to start with. Here is one that you control 4 sea zones. And here's one, the first person to win 3 battles. So those are your objectives for Troy. If you play with 1 expansion, you just take out all 6. You take out 6 random heroes from the basic game, and you swap these in. If you and then you put all 3 objectives in. If you're playing with 2 expansions, what you do is you take 8 heroes. So you take 4 random heroes from 2 different stacks, and you remove 8 from the basic game. You swap those in. You take 1 objective from your 2 different expansions at random, and then mix up the rest of them, and you take 1 more. So you still have 3 objective tiles. And then you put both decks out. If you play all 3 expansions, you're going to take 3 heroes and wonders from each expansion at random. You're going to take 1 random objective tile from each expansion, and then have all 3 decks out. And I'm not going to talk about every hero, but there's a lot of, the same kinds of things that your basic game has for your heroes. Your bonus cards, for the Troy bonus cards, you've got catapults, which let you destroy an opponent's fortress prior to the battle. Chariots let you move your land units to provinces. There's archers, which let you destroy an opponent's unit prior to battle. War elephants, they automatically roll a 5. Your legions each automatically roll a 5 die result automatically when you have war elephants. Siege vessels allow your triremes to engage in a land battle that's adjacent to the sea zone, but they cannot take losses. Greek phalanxes, you divide your battle dice by 7 instead of by 5 when you're taking damage. And quincrims, you destroy one of your opponent's triremes prior to the battle. And fortune tellers don't do anything. However, if you have 2 fortune tellers, you actually get to do any of the other bonus card effects. So one doesn't do anything, but the second one's really good. So those are your bonus cards for the Troy expansion. So your other 2 expansions, the Jerusalem and the Syracuse expansion, here's the objective tiles. Here is for the Jerusalem expansion. The first person to control 2 of the leadership tracks. The first person to put a temple in a legendary city. The first person to convert somebody else's province. And then the Syracuse objectives are the first person to get 8 different resources or 9 coins. The first person to get 12 buildings, so that would be cities, caravans, markets, temples. This is the first person to get 3 markets and or temples combination. So those are the different objectives, and then everything else is the same between them except for your heroes and your bonus decks are oriented differently based on war versus culture versus market. And so that's those 3 expansions on how they work. The Atlas game also has alternate setups for different numbers of players. So for a 3-player, where you normally cover up the right side of the board, they've got it set up so you put your 2 boards on the left side and cover up Rome and Carthage. And so this is for a 3-player game. Here's the alternate setup for 4-player. You've got the Atlas board here on your left. You're covering up Egypt and Babylon on the right. This is normally a 3-player here. You're putting that down for your 4th player. So for a 5-player, you're just covering up the right-hand side with Babylon on your map, and you're getting rid of the starting hero Hammurabi. And so you're playing with these 5 here. And, so that's how all the different variety there is in Mare Nostrum Atlas, all the 5 different expansions, and then it gives you alternate setups for how to play the game. Make sure you tune into all of our videos here at the Board Game Network.